Alexa, what does a film producer do?
A producer's role is to turn story ideas into profitable cinematic entertainment and persuade others to share the creative vision.
So in the short version, a producer is a top dog on set and off it. They decide who lives, who dies, what gets cut, and what stays.
End video.
But in this video, I'm going to break it down and describe exactly what each producer does at each step of the process, and explain it from my point of view as a producer of independent projects. Now before we begin, don't forget we release new Leon Unity lessons all the time, so go ahead and hit the subscribe button and hit that notification bell to make sure that you stay up to date with all of our free content coming out in the future. And if you like the video, don't forget to leave a like and a comment below to tell YouTube's screwed up algorithm that, you like it, the video. So what exactly does a film producer do? We do everything, goddammit, Karen!
Who is Karen?
I don't know who Karen is. I never know who Karen is.
My name's Kelsey, not Karen.
The job of a producer is not as clearly defined as, say, the writer, who writes the screenplay, or an actor who acts in the movie, the director who directs the action on camera, or a costume designer who designs the costumes. All their jobs are laid out as an active task that has a specific purpose in the production. So what exactly does the producer do for the project? It is clear to some, but not to too many, that the word production is an overarching term for the producing done by many individuals. All of these individuals, the writers, the actors, the directors, the director of photography, editors, costume designers, caterers, everything on the crew has a specific purpose, and each of them contribute to the production under the watchful eye of the producer. Sort of what in another industry you might call a project manager. Even on pictures, where the director usually has a lot more creative control, the producer usually gets the last and final say. To be a producer, you have to know how to handle yourself in a business manner. Producers have to understand the economics of filmmaking and the industry at large, understanding both the needs of the creative and, most importantly, how to make a film a profitable venture. That's not to say the producer's job is entirely analytical and not at all creative, because as I just said, it requires an understanding of the creative arts. Understanding their wants and needs from their perspective is vital to a good producer's skill set. Every part of every department produces their part of the production, but the producer produces the production on a whole. I can't believe I got that first time.
Every part of every department produces their part of the production, but the producer produces the production. It's a good acting, it's a speech exercise.
Budgets are a huge part of the producer's skill set. This is just Romanian money and actually is worth like 5p. Writing up the budgets, hiring and firing staff, that's the job of the producer. We go into business development meetings and make sure that everybody is on the same page. The producer makes all this happen, and it can be a lot to manage all by yourself. So that's why there are often different levels of producer, just like there are different levels of management in any business. Let's break down the different types of producer. Associate producers are like assistant producers, though technically that's a different job altogether because assistant producers are assistants to producers. But never mind, it's a bit confusing, but basically they're like sub-producers. They tend to be the Commander Riker to the Captain Picard producer. They take their orders from on high, and then they delegate down to the various department heads and tell them what they want to do, what the executive wants them to basically go ahead and do. They execute the orders of the producer themselves, scheduling, meetings, etc. Line producers do a similar function, but it's more on-set budget and scheduling stuff than it necessarily is the business development side of things that associate producers tend to do. Co-producers are like the full producer, but they haven't quite earned their stripes yet. They tend to be focused on one specific subset of the production, such as the financing, so like talking to advertisers and brands, or potentially they were brought on board specifically because they have a relationship with a good cast member who is important to the production, and they're there to handle their needs basically as a dedicated producer. They're on a similar level to full producers, but they're kind of just below them. Producers, sometimes referred to as full producers, especially when referring to them in the context of other producer types, they're the ones who run the show and are in charge of the production of the project. Depending on the size and the scope of the project, they handle everything from hiring the cast and crew, to managing talent, to managing the business of show business, of which there is no business like I know. Executive producers are there for varying reasons. they funded the project, or they're executive directors of the production company that's developing the project, or potentially they're an actor or other producer who has put their name on the project for a small cut. And sometimes that can be very valuable to small productions and series, basically, because that gives them promotional value. Alternatively, they are just ranked as such because they are the head of the totem pole, and that clear chain of command needs to be established. If the full producer is the Captain Picard, then the executive producer is that admiral who shows up for a couple of episodes and bosses Captain Picard around, telling him things to do, and usually he's wrong about something, and that's when usually you get studio interference and problems.
Is there a joke in there?
Hello, darkness.
My life is the joke. So let's break down what happens during each phase of production with regards to the producer. Now, there are 4 main phases of every film: pre-production, principal photography, post-production, and distribution, also known as delivery. Pre-production is everything that goes into the making of the production before the cameras start rolling. Generally includes things like the writing of the script, storyboards, the hiring of the cast and crew, getting the costumes together, getting props, and making sure that everything is ready when you want to go. Pre-production might be the most critical part of the producer's job because it involves the most, well, producing. Without the producer going around picking out talent, posting to the job boards, negotiating the contracts, and generally managing these people and overseeing their work, the pre-production phase becomes impossible. It requires the most putting everything in place so that all the awesome talent and creatives can hit the ground running when principal photography begins. However, as many a producer will tell you, sometimes their job is just plugging holes in a ship to stop it from sinking. Principal photography, also known as production, is the phase in which the cameras start rolling and shit gets real. It is arguably when producers are under the most stress, because every second wasted on set could be literally hundreds of thousands of dollars wasted on what is a very tightly wound budget. It is also the most mind-breakingly body-crushing experience for the producer, because it is arguably the point where the least control is actually in your hands, and is in hands of the people you hired in the first place. However, that doesn't mean the producers have nothing to do. They're still reviewing things, taking meetings with executives, and preparing everything so that when post-production begins, you are in the same sort of position you were before principal photography began. And the people doing post-production, editing, visual effects, etc., can hit the ground running. If something goes wrong during production, it falls to the producer to find a way to correct that error, or to say no if it can't be done. Though I tend to go against that idea in the first place.
If there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, literally, if there is a will, there's a way. I think that is one of the most important qualities of a producer, is not to say, no, this can't be done, but how can we do this? Finally, in post-production, the film has wrapped, and any reshoots that need to be done are shot, hopefully, and we're ready for all the editing bays, visual effects, and sound designs, and lots of screaming because we're far too close to the deadline of the production and everything's going to shit and we're all going to die.
You preempted this as the cast.
No, but yeah. Post-production is where all the creative efforts of the cast and crew and all their talent gets put together in the final cut. You often get the final say on the final cut. This can sometimes be different if a director has final cut written into their contract. The producer also oversees the post-production manager, who oversees that department. The producer tells them who they'll be working with, what their budget is, and what the deadlines are that have to be met, what goals and milestones have to be met in order to make sure this film gets released on time. You don't want some visual effects artist getting carried away with a year-long thing if it's not going to amount to much and not really matter in the final product. When the film is written, filmed, and edited, and the final cut is in your hands, it's distribution time. Now, typically producers will have worked out a good distribution deal before shooting even begins. Sometimes things like brand advertisements aren't actually included in the principal photography process and actually have to be added later in post, and sometimes distribution has to be worked out after post-production is completed. And there you have it. As producer, you are the project manager in charge of everything good, bad, and apocalyptic that could possibly happen during the production process. It's a gratifying and absolutely terrifying position to be in. Thank you very much for watching all the way through this. If you like what you've seen here today, we've got other videos and other filmmaking topics and other creative topics going through, so don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe this video, and go ahead and leave a comment below on what you'd like us to talk about next. And don't forget to hit that notification bell, because if you don't, I'll be sad. Also, thank you to KELSEY, who is behind the camera right now and has been helping me with these videos, putting them together, because Apparently can't even film myself on my own. I need a producer.
Here I am.
So, thank you very much, and thank you to you guys for watching.